Now, one of our best tools, one of our favourite tools, is something we call the Financial Conditions Index, and I'm sure some of the listeners have heard of it before. There's quite a few different versions of the Financial Conditions Index around in the world. And what you try and do with them is you try and say, based on what's going on with interest rates, with the currency, with equity markets, even housing markets, with corporate lending rates, based on all those factors, how would you expect all those factors to combine together and influence growth? And that measure there, the 12-month change in our Financial Conditions Index, has a nice lead to where growth is tracking. Now, we've used the Atlanta Fed forecast of quarterly growth to give a guide of real-time growth because we wanted to show that our Financial Conditions Index for the US is projecting quite a nice recovery now back towards 3% growth. So if that was all we're looking at, and usually it is all we're looking at because we've got to have some sort of exogenous shock to derail that sort of view, we'd be saying, and we were saying this indeed back in April, that US growth looks like it's going to go back towards trend over the next 9 months. And the main reason for that is because US 10-year yields have fallen so much, they're providing a really nice stimulus to the US economy now. And if you recall, when we went down to that trough back in January, December, that was when the equity markets were falling 20% in the US. So that tightens the financial conditions. And as we've bounced out of that, supported by the Fed, they've actually managed to engineer quite a good loosening of financial conditions, leading towards something like 3% growth. So that's why I say the world does revolve around the US. The US is in a pretty good place right now. We've had enough easing in financial conditions to underscore growth over the remainder of this year. Similarly, if we look at Australia, the relationship doesn't fit quite as tightly because we do get quite a bit of movement around in the commodity cycle, but it's still a pretty reasonable fit. And with the rate cuts we've had here and with equity markets on their high, it augurs quite well for growth moving back towards 2.5–3% in Australia over the next 9 months. So again, we've had the rate cut here. We've had that feed through into the lower lending rates, and that will boost the economy. We've also had a rally in the equity market, also helped by the coalition victory, which has led to that little pop at the end there from 2.5 towards 275 for growth. So again, the outlook for Australian growth, when we put all our factors together, says that we should have a mildly accelerating growth path, very similar to what the RBA is talking about.